Oh God. It's ridiculous that I've used all these power ports all over the place. For the love of God. How much shit is actually plugged in around here? Okay. That should now have power. Where's the presentation I just created?
Is it going to take a sec to sync?
No, I should. Make sure I actually saved it to the right spot. What the fuck?
cut to us automatically.
Yes.
All right.
Our audio is probably hot now because we're already on picture there. So that means that they can now hear us.
They can, in fact, hear us.
They can, in fact, and look, we can see here that our levels are actually good.
I do like that, though.
I do like this a lot. We're going to talk about what this is. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to a Photo Joseph's Photo Moment live show with Aaron Precki in the house.
In person, not green screened.
You know, I had an idea for a gag that we obviously didn't have time to set up, where we would green screen you, like some over there, and then have it look like you were, do a super source, make it look like you were from your studio, but then
and then walk over.
Just walk over here. That would have been
good.
That would have been good, but clearly we're not quite that organized. My God. It's almost like we're recreating the chaos of the day.
Yeah.
Right now.
Right. I mean, up until like 30 seconds ago, this table was just full of stuff.
Full of stuff. A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Let's get a quick shout in the comments. Make sure that you all can hear and see us just fine. I'm seeing that must be your chat on the right because it's way busier than mine.
that one's mine on the right. Good to see everybody here. Thanks for joining.
But it's highlighted my name.
That's because it's in the extension.
Because I'm logged in on my...
The extension is doing it.
Ah, very cool.
I think.
We would show you this, but we can't because we're not that organized.
Oh, no, it's because you are logged in as you. That's
because I'm logged in as me on there. Excellent. We've got both chats. So we're going to test things. Before we really go too far down this rabbit hole, let's make sure everything actually works. So I'm going to bring up the chat. It was active, I guess. So there it is. It's active, theoretically. Go ahead and fire up one of them.
Hearing and seeing.
There we go.
From Eric.
Hearing and seeing from Eric. Excellent. So you're running that, and you pulled that from yours or mine?
That was from my chat.
Okay, so I'm going to pull. All right, I'm just doing it here. Did I ever check to see if this trackpad actually works?
Nope.
Nope, I did not.
Jason on your chat says, looks and sounds great.
Oh, look, it just connected. Okay, now let's see if I can control it.
There we go.
So let's go to your sound is strange. Is it on? Tom says, my sound is strange? How is it strange?
Looks
why
good to
did it
me.
go away? Okay.
It's a good question. I think there's an auto timer now, too.
You put an auto timer on it?
Yeah.
That
been getting
sounds
many
like
requests.
A good idea, but I don't want that on. No, my mic is on.
No, I think we're good.
Anybody else? Jason says it looks and sounds. Oh, that's Jason. Hey, Jason. Awesome, dude. Thanks for tuning in. Oh, that's what we need. The Resolve page, the ResolveCon page, with everybody's picture.
Oh yeah.
We need a lot of things. We definitely need a lot of things. It does appear that's fine. I guess. Oh, look at that. Another little iPad.
Another little
That's a cute
iPad.
little iPad.
I know the iPad mini is great.
iPad mini is great. All right. Everybody seems to hear us and well. Audio levels seem okay. The Photo Joseph sound is a bit strange. Jason is saying. So it's two people saying that my sound is strange. Great. Wonderful.
Strange. Okay.
Define strange. How do we... Okay, well, we thought we had everything working beforehand, but apparently we don't. Can you define strange? Maybe it's just the mic's... Oh, no, the mic's in.
Joseph's sound is thin and sometimes phases. That's more specific.
That is very specific. Why would that be? Okay, let me plug in.
And another strange says, sounds like a low bit rate. Oh, the timer is, in fact, doing something strange for this chat.
The timer zooms? Oh, your timer.
My
Okay.
timer.
All right, well, we'll be eventually actually live.
We'll
but
be.
I'm going to listen to my own audio here.
Like I said in the chat, it's the behind the scenes.
It's the behind the scenes. Definitely behind the scenes. Okay, so what's going on here with my audio? My audio sounds fine to me in here, which is obviously very hard to do when you're listening to yourself.
Yes.
But it sounds totally fine. I can't imagine where it's showing up strange. Are other people hearing that as well? Can we get a couple other... I mean, I guess we're getting a pretty clear confirmation.
Yeah.
Yes, my audio sounds tinny. Why would that be?
Well,
I don't understand.
if it's not if it's not too bad, I think we should just...
I'm gonna real quick, give me one more thing. I'm gonna plug into the Pearl and see if I can get anything from there.
Oh yeah, you can go listen to it in that office where you can't hear, where you don't get the crosstalk.
Well, no, the problem with listening to myself is that I'm on delay, so it makes it very, very complicated to listen to, but I'm going to plug in.
While you're doing that, I'm going to go and fix that.
Okay.
Make it not...
We've got a few things to fix. Oh, now I hear it.
You do hear it?
Yeah.
Goes to show how much we tested this beforehand.
Yeah. Well,
Tom says move it higher on your shirt.
No, that's in my always position.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, there we go. Auto hide is disabled. That should
Oh, I know why. Okay, I know why. It's because mine's having noise reduction applied to it and yours is not.
Ah, that
So
makes sense.
Find that setting.
Okay.
System. Noise assist, here we go.
Jonathan says it's listenable unless if Curtis Judge shows up.
Okay, so I just turned off noise assist on mine. Although now it's a lot noisier, I can definitely hear that. But let me go back over here where it's supposed to be. And now you guys tell us if we are sounding more the same. Because I have disabled noise assist. I think I did it properly.
So much better.
So much better, okay.
Okay, well, now at least we match. So
Now we match, and that's the key. I think that normally people are used to hearing me that way with the noise assist, but it's interesting that the noise assist is making it tinny. So maybe I've got it turned up a little bit too high.
Yeah,
I'll
could be.
play with that. Too many mics open for Joseph. There's always too many mics. Okay, much better. Okay, perfect.
Okay, great.
All right. Shall we go? We actually have slides. That's how organized we were.
Yeah.
I made the slides 4.5 minutes ago, but are we ready to actually do this?
I think we should jump in.
Okay, so
I
let's
think we're
jump in.
good.
So the first slide is, what is ResolveCon? Because at the end of the day, if we're explaining this whole thing, but nobody knows what the heck we're talking about, then that would be kind of silly. So go. Why don't you start that?
Yeah. So ResolveCon was a 2-day conference in Eugene, all about Resolve. It was a lineup of incredible speakers. I think all of which have YouTube channels where they create their own videos about Resolve, about different aspects of Resolve.
Nadia, for some reason, she doesn't have a YouTube channel.
Oh, interesting.
She's too busy doing real work.
And the selection of speakers was pretty wide in terms of the aspects of using Resolve. Resolve is obviously a video editor program, but it can do a lot of things.
Right.
I have been using it lately. In the past, I would say a year and a half exclusively at this point for all my videos on YouTube, and
which made it fun for us to attend because I'm using Resolve as well now, and we thought, oh, we're going to learn so much. Like we had time to pay attention to anything that was actually happening on stage.
We had to
go back and watch the replays ourselves.
Yes, I'm looking forward to catching up to the replays because there's a lot of knowledge being shared, a lot of tips that some of which I absorbed during the conference, but a lot of which just I could not even focus on the content. But it was a great event.
It was a great event, and hosted by Casey Ferris. So if you guys don't know who Casey Ferris is and you're a Resolve user, then what are you doing? Go on YouTube, search for Casey Ferris, F-A-R-I-S, and he hosted this thing. It was his brainchild. He put this whole thing together and invited a bunch of epic people. So here, just quick scroll through the speakers. So Casey, of course, Daria, who is a big Resolve educator for Blackmagic, she was there. Mr. Alex Tech, known him for years, that guy's awesome. Colin Kelly, I mean, every single one of these are absolutely fantastic. Jay Littman, Darren Moston, Marcel Patillo, Billy Ribka, Patrick Sterling, it was fun. Jason Yadlovsky. He was teaching us how to pronounce his name, and I think
he's in the chat.
He's in the chat.
Yeah.
Did I get that right, Jason? Hopefully I got that all right. And Jake Whip. So there's a big audience. If you go to ResolveCon.com right now, you can see the lineup. And if you are a Resolve user, then you really should be following every single one of them.
Absolutely.
With that said, so that's what ResolveCon is. It was a live in-person event, which we were there to live stream it to the world at large. It was nice because you could watch it live for free online, or you paid to be there, but it was pretty minimal what they charged to pay. It was more the expenses getting there because it's in the middle of Oregon. But yeah, that's what the event was. All Resolve education, 2 days solid.
2 days, super packed schedule. It was great.
It was really cool.
So yeah, we were there to broadcast the show on Casey Ferris's YouTube channel.
Correct.
And that was us bringing a bunch of gear, similar gear, almost actually a lot of the same gear.
A lot of the same gear.
That is in fact here. The exact same gear got transported over there and set up. And neither of us do that kind of work primarily anymore, of like going to on-site locations. I used to do quite a lot of that, but it was like 5 years ago or more at this point. So I had nice little portable kits ready to go that I could just easily transport, but now everything's built into my studio and all your stuff is racked up into this studio. So it was a lot of, let's figure out what we can yank from here and there.
Which is the next topic, actually.
Which is the next topic.
So let's go to that. Let me pull up that slide. Go here. So the next topic is pre-prep. So what was involved in pre-prep for this event? And we actually I want to make sure we've got the notes that you built. So we're going to go through these as well. So I'm looking at my phone. I'm not reading messages from people. I'm actually checking my notes for this. So first up was site inspection. And that's something I did kind of like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
I went out, and it was because I was going up to Portland for something else. So I stopped in Eugene, checked it out. So it was at a hotel, standard kind of hotel ballroom, and went up and did a site inspection. I had this picture, it's too hard to pull up, but I took pictures of the location. I actually used an app that was really cool to simulate focal lengths. So you kind of set your camera, I'm going to shoot with micro four thirds, and then you can zoom in and see what kind of a lens you would need. You go, so I want a wide view of the stage. Okay, that's going to be a 50 millimeter, that kind of thing. That was kind of fun. So I planned it out that way, met with the team up there to figure out exactly what we were going to do and determine how many cameras we were going to have and where I was going to set up, and just kind of talk through what it was going to be. Took a ton of notes. And from there, started to really plan out how this would go. And one of the big challenges from the beginning we knew was going to be audio, because the facility had its own built-in audio, right? They've got speakers, they've got lav mics and handheld mics in their own wireless system, but we were not allowed to tap into it. There's no way that we could tap into it. Oh, you've got one of those pictures.
Got one of your pictures pulled up.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Here, let's bring that up. What do we do? We said that was Apple TV. So there's one of the pictures you can see in the bottom left corner there. It shows the location, where in time when I took it, and what the camera is simulating, what the focal length is simulating. So that's what
and then
that
I think this one is the other.
All right, there's another view. Yeah, cool. So that's what the room looked like before we did anything. I mean, it was totally set up differently, of course, for our event. You'll see that in a little bit here. But audio was, we knew that was going to be a challenge because, again, they had house audio, but we could not tap into it. So the initial plan was to double mic. We would have a mic for the live stream and a mic for the house. And we eventually decided not to do that, which turned out to be not a good idea. But we decided, because we were going to control what was on the projector, we would control the house audio. We took full control of everything.
So by house audio, we mean that like this is a pretty typical situation that you get in these kind of hotels where someone has come in and installed a system which is usually handheld lav mics, and then there's like the panel on the wall for controlling the projector to bring it down, turn on and off the mics, and it's like it's not a mixing board, it's a panel on the wall with a touch screen.
Right.
And the usually there's a way to grab audio from the HDMI or other ports on the walls too. Right. So the thought was if they had a way to grab audio from the HDMI port on the wall, since we were going to be feeding the projector from the booth, we could also send audio into the house speakers from there.
Right,
so.
And that is what we ended up doing. Yeah. And we'll get more into that. So site inspection, choosing the lenses with the app, and equipment choices. And that was largely just thinking through the whole thing and planning what are we going to need, and we'll go through the equipment list, visualizing the layout and packing up the studio. So that was the fun part at the end. So last week, what a week. Last week I had tons of stuff going on, including a webinar for Blackmagic on Thursday morning. And so I could not tear apart my studio to pack until after that, and I had to leave Friday morning. So Thursday afternoon, as soon as the Blackmagic webinar ended, I basically shut down and started ripping things out of the rack, preparing all the gear to bring up there. I did have an equipment list, and I don't need to put this on, but just in case we forget something, but I think we can just run through it from memory. Actually, why don't we do that? Let's hit the equipment list now of what was brought.
Yeah. So let's see. Actually, I have the little H2R gear diagram.
Oh, you made a diagram, right?
Yeah. Let me just. Oh, I need to share my computer to the Apple TV now.
Okay. So you go ahead and get that sorted out. Yep. He's going to bring up the diagram. I borrowed a new ATEM Constellation 2ME from Blackmagic for this because we knew we were going to want multiple outputs, and the 2ME was perfect for what we were doing. And that was the only equipment that we got separately. Everything else was stuff that I already owned. And we brought, so it was the ATEM 2ME. We had a few Hyperdecks. Is that? Oh, that's already. Okay, great. Almost.
Let me. No, yeah. Okay. Wait. Let me hide the title bar.
We had 3 Hyperdecks, which I thought I only needed 2, but it was easier to take all 3 because they're in a rack unit, and it turned out that was a good idea to bring all 3 of them. Okay. And is that ready? Okay. So here's the. Oops. Wrong one. Apple TV. There we go.
ATEM 2ME, kind of the center of the whole operation.
The whole thing. Yep.
4 cameras here. We had the Hyperdeck for graphics playback with key and fill channel.
Correct.
For all the transparency graphics. We have the Hyperdeck Studio Mini, which was for the longer run video clips that were like commercials or the lunch loop, things that would just...
So we had separate Hyperdecks for those, which actually was necessary, and this is why I said I was glad we brought 3. Turned out to be necessary because I had forgotten this, but in the Hyperdecks, when you want to play back video, you have to set the codec in the Hyperdeck of what you're playing back, just like you do for recording. So the graphics were ProRes 4444, and so I had to set the Hyperdeck for ProRes, but then the video files were all H.264, which wouldn't play if the Hyperdeck was in ProRes mode without actually going in and changing the mode.
So by having 2 of them, we had one that was dedicated for the graphics, set to ProRes, and another one was dedicated to the video playback, which was set to H.264. And then the third one we used to record the show. So we recorded the whole thing as a backup and to use for redistribution.
And then up on the stage, there was a computer that they had set up with Resolve and a bunch of sample projects, which all of the speakers used the one computer at the stage, which was nice.
Right.
So we had a feed coming back from that. We'll talk a little bit more about that because we changed how it worked the second day. And then as for audio, we basically had 3 microphones, the 2 lav mics and a handheld mic running into an audio mixer over here. That audio mixer...
We're going to interrupt you. We're getting reports that the stream is frozen. That's on your channel.
That one's my channel.
So see, it's just people saying, oh,
But
not
people are
frozen. Your stream is
still
freezing.
commenting.
2 set is frozen. Guys, let's get a quick check on the actual stream on Aaron's channel that is showing up there because we're seeing reports of it being frozen. Let me go back to the video.
Yeah.
So there's some data flying through. Not frozen here. Okay, so some are saying not frozen, some are saying frozen.
So-
if it's frozen, just do a refresh and let's hope for the best.
Yeah, okay. Oh, shoot, now I lost my desktop. There it is.
Not frozen on my side. Aaron's channel seems okay. Okay.
All right.
All right. So, all right. Continuing on. Can I go back to your
Yeah.
screen? Okay.
So yeah, as for the audio mixer fed the analog audio back into the ATEM 2ME,
Right.
which was how we were mixing the audio for the show. This is the Hyperdeck for recording the output. So we recorded all the whole program locally. This is a simplified diagram. This is not literally all the pieces. There are a lot of SDI converters in here.
God, there's a lot of SDI converters.
That I did not bother drawing, but this is the basics.
what's that? Did we cover that?
We didn't cover this. One of the outputs from the ATEM also went into this little device, the Clarity M,
That's what that is. Okay.
Yep.
This guy.
which is also on our table here.
This here. Let me turn this around. So this thing, I've talked about it a little bit on the show. Let me get it not glaring. There you go.
There we go.
In fact, let me just do this. I never set up the overhead. Oh, the overhead looks like it's...
It looks a little overexposed, but it's okay.
No, it's right. It's because it's pure white. If this cable's long enough, get that into the overhead. Well, let's see if that works. See if that actually looks good on there. So you can see this is the audio, the lufts meter, and this is being used right now live. So you're seeing on here, the camera may not have been set back to autofocus. I don't think it's focusing on it, but you can see our meters, you can see our levels in here, and this is allowing us to monitor our live audio, which we used there to make sure that the stream that we were sending out to YouTube was consistent, that we had same levels across speakers and everything else. It was just a way to see that visually.
Visually, which is the key, because there was a lot of stuff going on, and essentially I was at the audio board, and I did end up wearing the headphones almost the entire time for reasons we'll get into. But even then, it was nice that both of us could just look at that thing and at a glance see how the levels have been over the last minute or whatever that loop
So that's
is.
why we brought that, so that we made sure that we had that ready to go.
Yeah.
And other part of the pre-prep, because that is kind of where we're supposed to be right now, the pre-prep, is he showed the 4 cameras. We had 2 of them wired, SDI straight in. Those are the ones that were pointing at the stage and we're back where we were. We were at the back of the house. And then 2 of them were at the front of the house. Actually, initially one was out in the lobby, but I ended up moving it in the front of the house. And those were on wireless, which was great. That worked out really, really well.
Really nice.
Wireless HDMI for that. And then, of course, those had to get converted. So, yeah, a ton of
converters.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 mini converters, and every single one of them got used.
Yep.
Yeah, which was planned. I mean, I brought as many as I knew we needed.
Yep.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. Anyway,
That's good.
so that was the pre-prep, really. So it was just planning it all out, making an equipment list. Interesting, when I made the equipment list, to make sure that I didn't forget any cables, I would list, for example, a BGH1, its power cable, obviously its lens, the tripod for it, kind of everything as a camera package. So I just made that checklist to make sure that I had enough things. And the only things that I didn't get to check off the list were enough power strips, because I ran out. But those are easy to buy. So.
Yep.
That's how that went. So I guess that's right for pre-prep. It was really just planning that. Obviously, we had a lot of meetings in advance. We did, during the pre-prep, decide to not double mic for the audio, to take control of the audio from the house, which, again, turned out to be a problem. We'll get into that when we get into day 1. But, yeah, I guess that's really it for pre-prep. So then the next stage is back to the slides here, arrival and setup. So what did we say about this? I drove up there, rented a big old Jeep truck thing and drove up there. I posted some photos of that on Twitter. You might have seen those. That was fun. Packed all that up. It took, an hour to get the vehicle packed. I get up there and the whole crew comes out to unpack, and 30 seconds later, everything's out of the truck. I'm going, that was easier. That's nice.
Yeah, and then I came down from Portland, and I ended up biking to the train station, threw my bike on the train, took that down, biked from the train station over to the hotel. So, and I'm flying back with my bike today, which means I'm flying, and I don't want to check the bike, and I don't want to check any bags, so I can only carry 2 things, which basically meant I had 0 capacity to bring anything down for this. I put a mic transmitter, because it packs down to this tiny little package, and I brought you a network switch.
Or network switch, which you said, I'm only bringing this if I can leave it behind.
Yeah, I'm only bringing this if I can leave it here. I'm not taking it back with me.
I needed a network switch. I didn't want to have to rip one out of my rack.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so that was, arrival and then setup. So we didn't get started until 3:30 or something on Friday. I got out of here later than I wanted to. It's a 3-hour drive, 3.5-hour drive. And we were setting up until 11 o'clock at night, with no break. And I guess to talk through the actual setup. So let's talk through, let's check our notes to make sure we're not missing anything. We're going to talk about how we ran the cables.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get there, we do a site inspection, make some final decisions on where things are going to go and how we're going to run it. And the projector, so just to illustrate the setup in the room.
I think I have a picture we can show.
Okay, cool. There's the projection screen, of course. Projector obviously is the other side of the room. Great. Let's go to this.
Make sure there's no audio from that.
There might be. Oh, it's muted.
Okay.
So there's there you can see the projector, the presenter up on stage, and excuse me, there's a patch panel or a panel on the wall right underneath the projector, right behind the presenter, that they would plug HDMI into, and that's the only way to get into the projector. I had been under the impression from our site inspection that I could get into the projector from the back. Turned out that was the one thing you couldn't do from the back of the house. We ended up running fiber HDMI. Thank goodness I have those. And I did a video on these fiber HDMI cables probably a year and change ago now, but these worked out great. Ran fiber HDMI from the computer all the way to the back to the switcher, and then ran an output fiber HDMI from the switcher back up to the wall input. We had 2 long fiber HDMIs running. Obviously, if I didn't have the fiber, we could have done that over SDI and done a conversion on the other end, because it was SDI in and out of the ATEM regardless. But we had the fiber HDMIs, and they worked out flawlessly.
They were great.
Great. That was awesome. I'd never used them in that level of production, so it was nice to see that worked.
Yeah, and last time I was doing live events like this, fiber HDMI was not really an option. It was so expensive.
Yeah, fiber HDMI used to be crazy expensive. Yeah. You had to pay, the fiber itself was expensive, but then you had to buy the HDMI to fiber adapters on each end, and those were really expensive. And now for $100 you can buy a 300-foot cable on Amazon. It's incredible, all in one. So that's how we got that up. And then the sound, as Aaron was explaining, the microphones, the computer audio, everything was running over HDMI into the projector, or into the wall panel, because then the house was set up to extract audio from that to go to the speakers. Other setup stuff, internet.
Internet, that was a big, obviously a critical part of this whole thing.
This was a little bit odd. Got there, and there's wall panels all over for Ethernet. Great, so plug into any one of those. But we couldn't just pick, we could pick any one, but we couldn't use multiples, not that we needed them, but you had to go into the back room, and there was a patch panel, and we had to look at a map of all the Ethernet ports in the room. So we're going to be on this one, number 12 or whatever, and then they had to patch that in the back. So only one Ethernet port could be hot in the room at a time.
Which makes no sense to me,
Very strange.
Not gonna argue with that.
Not gonna argue with that. So we run that in, and we get all the gear set up. Well, that's just set up, just plugging everything in and testing, and we start testing. And we run a 4-hour stream.
And I would like to emphasize this again. We did, in fact, test the internet the day before.
A lot.
While by the time we got enough stuff to set up to get the web presenter to be able to be on air, we just turned it on at the normal bit rate, fed a camera into it, and just let it run for hours.
4 hours that thing ran.
Yeah.
And we had both the primary and the backup running. We had tested 60 megabit up in the house.
Yep.
On the Ethernet, we had known this in advance. This had been tested ages and ages before. We knew this, had tested multiple times over the course of multiple months. We had good bandwidth. This is going to work. And we're testing it, and it worked fine. So just put a pin in that.
Yep.
Just put a pin in that. We tested it. All right. Anything else for setup? Let's see. Let me look at the notes. We need to cover.
The graphics. So.
Oh yeah.
There was a lot of graphic assets for the show their team had created for us. So lower thirds for all the speakers, animations for what's up next, the loop that we were going to show during lunch of compilation of a bunch of short films and commercials that could just run on a loop for the hour-and-a-half lunch break. All sorts of interesting video clips and still frames, and they had they run entirely Windows operations, so they're exporting. They don't have the option to export ProRes, so they exported all the DNX HD format, which the Hyperdeck should be able to play.
Right. So that was the first kind of problem, but this wasn't fixable the day before. All of the motion graphics, DNX, whatever flavor it was, that gives you alpha channels. So like ProRes 4444, that fourth 4 is the alpha channel that gives you the transparency. There's a format for DNX that does the same thing. And for whatever reason, the Hyperdeck refused to play them. And so we wanted to say, well, okay, well, this is easy enough. We'll just convert them to ProRes 4444. No problem. They don't open in QuickTime because they're DNX files. They don't open in Compressor because that's QuickTime based. I download the DNX drivers from Avid's website, which is specifically to do this. Still nothing works. We're starting to kind of go, well, crap, this is a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
And then somebody suggested, will they open in Resolve? And it turns out they do. And that was a question we had. I had already installed the DNX driver. Did it work in Resolve because I installed the DNX driver? And he tested yesterday on his Mac, which doesn't have the DNX drivers, and they still open.
They open in Resolve.
Amazing. So we opened everything in Resolve. I just put it on a timeline, exported it out as ProRes, and then that worked. So now we've got our ProRes 4444 graphics for our key and fill, and the other ones were H.264, and I think that was all fine. I think we did do some conversion, but whatever. Yeah. We got the videos in there, and that was all playing fine.
So,
go ahead.
That was. Oh, okay. One other part of the setup that we had to set up, but then didn't have a great chance to test was the Zoom. So part of the event was, it was a hybrid event in that there was, so Daria couldn't come in person, so she was presenting remotely, and then there was a panel with 2 remote people on the panel. And one of the complicated parts was the panel was not only remote people, it was actually 2 remote and 1 person on stage, and there was a different version the next day where Daria was remote, and there were 2 on stage.
Right.
So we had to be able to have everybody talk to each other across both. And we didn't have any extra laptops left by that point, so one of the ground control crew brought a laptop for us to use for Zoom.
That was always the plan.
Yeah.
They were going to provide a laptop for Zoom.
And so it also meant that, like, we're not going to get it to be able to test it ahead of time until the day before. So
right. So the way we ran that, which in itself is interesting, pulling the audio and video from the Zoom laptop was easy enough, right? It's just HDMI out, convert to SDI, you got your video. The audio had to go separately because that had to feed into the mixer, not just straight into the ATEM. So that was just mini jack, 3.5 millimeter out of the laptop into the mixer. That part's easy. We had to feed, though, back so that the presenter could hear and see, the Zoom presenters could hear and see the live people. And I used my little Flint DP4, which worked out great for this. We took an SDI on one of the aux outs of the ATEM, converted that to HDMI and fed that into the Flint, and then pulled an audio tap off of the mixer, which was a mix minus. We're sending the audio without the Zoom presenter talking into that little Flint, merge that, send it in over USB, and it worked. It worked great.
It worked great.
That worked great. So that was the one part that didn't have any problems.
Yeah.
The one part.
Surprisingly, the Zoom part and the hybrid and being able to have both in-person and remote people all talking to each other worked fine.
Yep. Yep. That worked great.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's enough for setup. Let's go to the next one, which we've kind of already started to talk about, but that is simply testing. And I think we put this in here just so that we could emphasize again and again that we tested. Did we test?
I think we tested a little bit.
What else do we have on here in the notes? So we tested stream both encoders for 4 hours, no glitches.
Yep.
Speed test shows 60 megabit. Tested feeding the room sound, tested the sound from the stage computer. Yeah.
The stage computer was an important one because they were, playing back Resolve projects that were including sound. We had to make sure we could feed the audio from that computer into the house and into the stream.
Right.
So we made sure to test that the day before.
Yep, and everything was great. Everything looked and sounded great. So in theory, everything's good.
Yeah, and we were there till literally 11 p.m. setting things up, and then just decided that it was we were tired. It was time, and anything else we were going to get done was going to happen in the morning.
I had a frozen hotel burrito for dinner.
Yep.
Fabulous.
I think I just skipped dinner that day.
You did. All right, before we go on to the next, there are a bunch of things coming up in the chat. So let's see what we've got in the chat. Tom's saying that when I fix something, I got background noise. Yeah, because I was running a background noise, a noise assist plugin, which was reducing background noise. This room is not quiet, unfortunately. So now you're getting background noise from both of us. It is what it is. Sam has no idea what I was taught. So let's see here. Any actual questions coming up? Sam says, are the comments up? Yeah. Sam says, I would have guessed the photo just to spend a week packing the rig. It was so well put together in your eyes.
Good.
Sam was there. He is one of the ResolveCon team, and he was there. The massive assistant. That was awesome to have him there helping out with everything that he did. So thank you, Sam. You rock. And I'm glad that you feel that it was so well put together. It was well planned. It's just that I had very little time to actually pack. Are there any actual questions coming?
Okay, Philip has a question. I'm guessing the hotel didn't have a way to manage the bandwidth between guests and event participants on Wi-Fi versus you all trying to stream via Ethernet. Interesting. We were going to talk about this. Actually, this is a good time to talk about this.
Well, this is part of day one. So let's wait till we get into day one because that is.
I want to just mention though that they do have quite a system in that hotel, and essentially the internet's provided by Comcast. There's a separate company that has a router device in that room that does that kind of management, and that then feeds into the different parts of the hotel's network, like the ports and the Wi-Fi, and that company does in fact provide the service of allocating bandwidth to different things. And so they do have a system, and we were told to run the wire to the wall, which then feeds into that device for doing that management. And they did tell that company ahead of time that we were doing this event to make sure that they would allocate enough bandwidth to that port.
Right.
So we'll just leave that there.
Okay. All right. Any other questions before we move on?
No.
Doesn't look like it. Okay.
Oh wait, yes. Jonathan says earlier, you didn't have an option to put in your own PA system in the room.
Okay, I think, and I did see a comment about this earlier. Somebody said, wasn't our budget to have dedicated audio and so on? No. This, straight up, no. This was a fairly low budget event. The amount that they were charging per guest was very low. I think it was only $50 if I remember right. I have no idea what money they got from sponsors. I know how much that was. Everybody who was there was paid. Everyone was paid to be there, but there was not some. Okay, here's another $20,000 for audio kind of a thing. It was not. It was relatively low budget, and it was on us to bring in all the gear that we would need to do this. Which in the site inspection, if I had said, well, there's no way I can do this without getting additional gear, then we would have had to have thought through things. But I knew that I had the gear to make it work.
But you don't have any PA audio.
No, I don't have a PA system.
Yeah.
And if by that you're talking about specifically setting up big speakers, no.
Right,
but again, the house has speakers, so there's no reason to think that I would even need that. Right. No, the house had its own speaker system, PA system, if you want to call it that, and I knew that I'd be bringing mics to feed into our mixer, and we had everything that we needed.
Yeah.
The problems turned out to be surprises. That came up later.
Okay.
Chris says, but what did you test? We tested everything. Okay. I think we can go on to the this fun slide. Day one. Boom.
Day one.
The day that the brains exploded. All right. We start off. Oh, before the day rolled, we set up our BTS.
Oh yeah.
Which was super fun.
That was a lot of fun. That was BTS cameras were the Mevo cameras, and we had 4 of them, various points around, and you can just set it up to auto rotate between the cameras.
It's called Auto Director.
I brought the DJI microphone, and we were both wearing one of those.
Right.
The battery lasted about half a day, so I had to charge it during the breaks, during the lunch break. Both wearing a lav mic, so we could talk at a low volume, but you would hear it very clearly on the stream, which was nice.
But it's still quiet, but clear.
But at least it wasn't camera audio.
Right.
And that was cool. Yeah. It was a lot of fun. People were asking about what was on the iPad between us. That was the Mevo app.
Oh yeah, that was the Mevo app, so we could see.
Just to make sure that it's like running.
Yeah, make sure it's running.
Yeah. Also, there wasn't a lot of other places to put that iPad.
That's part of it too. Kind of ran out of table space. And your little DJI mic dealio was plugged into one of the ATEMs. So the ATEMs, the Mevos all have a microphone import. So you can just use the on-camera mic. They have really actually good mics on them, but this obviously worked out much better. So we plugged that in, and then you can do the audio mixing from that the Mevo app. And that worked out great. So that once we got that up and running, it just ran, and that ran the whole time, which is why we did 2 8-hour-long BTS streams, which is pretty cool. Let's see here. We don't really need to talk about adjusting the bandwidth of that. All right, so let's hit our first problem. Our first major problem.
So we did get in like an hour and a half before the event started that morning.
Even more than that,
maybe two or something. And that was doing our last minute things, and double checking the graphics because we hadn't done any of the graphics setup the day before. So like make sure the clips actually play on the Hyperdeck and we can overlay them and choosing which keys to use for those kinds of things in the ATEM. But the event starts,
everything's going fine.
Kicks off.
We start streaming, probably an hour and a half before the event started. We started streaming.
We started pushing the stream, but then didn't click the go live until 5 minutes before.
Right, we're pushing to YouTube and not actually live.
But yeah, we're pushing a video feed up to YouTube and watching the cache on the web presenter and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it looked fine.
Probably 10 minutes into the event, we start to see that little cache thing filling up on the web presenter.
Yeah.
And if you're not familiar with the web presenter, can I bring that screen up? I wonder if I can. I don't think I have this routed in anywhere, especially because it's HD. It's not going to show up in 4K.
Yeah.
I don't have this wired up, but right now, we are looking at the web presenter status window. And good idea.
Maybe I can just share my.
And this shows you the current bitrate you're streaming at. It shows you the current cache, which is you want that to be as low as possible. If the cache fills up, you've got problems. If it starts to approach, if it gets over like 20%, you probably have a real problem. And we start to see this little flashing red light, and we're looking at each other going, what is happening here? So as soon as that's up, I will show you what it looks like. Ready?
There we go.
Here we go. So that is what it looks like. Now you're actually going to get the cascade. But you can see on here, it shows the current bit rate. So I'm streaming in 4K, so I'm streaming at 23 megabit from here. The cache is at 3%, which is beautiful. That is a good solid, that's where you want it to be.
Yeah.
You get a bunch of other information on there. You see your audio level meters. But yeah, that's it. So, okay, that's good enough.
Yeah.
That's what we're watching. We have a dedicated monitor to watch that, and we start to see it filling up. And we're looking at each other going, you gotta be kidding me. This was working. I think we went through a variety of things to try to solve it. Lowered the bit rate on the stream, which you can do on the web presenter while it's encoding. You can't change resolutions or frame rates, but you can change or stream keys, ostensibly. But you can change the bit rate that you're streaming at. So we just dropped it down lower.
And it's worth noting that is not true on the ATEM minis. So the ATEM minis, you can't change any of the settings while it's going. You have to stop. But on the web presenter, interestingly, you can adjust the bitrate on the fly.
Which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think that's a very, very good feature. We were streaming simultaneously from 2 web presenters, and we understand that there's not a whole lot of validity to using the same internet connection for your primary and your backup. That was not about internet connection, that was more about if the hardware itself fails, if something goes wrong with the web presenter, which sadly they do have a habit of locking up when the cache gets full. You can't just stop it. And so multiple times, so first of all, we saw that happening, and I think probably the first thing we did was maybe lower bitrate or maybe even just turn off the backup stream, free up some bandwidth. And it made basically no difference. Maybe make a difference for like a minute and then it would make no difference. Then we decided to try cellular. We had a variety of ways to do this. You pulled the SIM out of your phone and dropped it into a YoloBox.
Yeah.
So we had a YoloBox as, go ahead and grab it, yeah. We had the YoloBox as a backup.
See, I really am here in person, not green screened. I can take things out of the background.
With Aaron's lovely PK1 stand for this, a lovely cage for that.
Yep.
We had this, he popped his SIM in there and started streaming from there. He had decent cell reception in there.
Not as much as I would have liked, but it was enough.
It was enough. And so that got a signal out, not the greatest quality, but it did get a signal out. Meanwhile, I had a full cellular modem setup that has Ethernet out. It's not just, basically think of like one of those that you plug in your computer over USB, except that it's a box with external antennas. It has an Ethernet jack on it. And that is a really robust way to get a cell signal and actually over Ethernet pipe it into whatever you need. So I ran out to set that up. Should have had that set up the day before, we ran out of time. I ran out to set that up and I was getting just trash bandwidth. I was getting 0.1 megabit up, obviously not enough. So that we had to abandon. But it took a while to get that tested and set up and abandon that. We also tried using your phone connected into the web presenter.
Web presenter USB, yeah.
Right, and that, well, it didn't work because we
forgot to
turn off the Ethernet connection.
So the way the web presenter works, it has the ability to fall back to a cell signal or a USB phone tethering solution, which is a very cool feature. And the way that it's set up, this is actually an important part of how the web presenter handles failure, which is that if your network connection gets pulled out and actually goes down, it will then start using the USB cellular automatically, which sounds great in theory. The problem is that if the network connection is just bad and slow, it doesn't register as being off, so it doesn't fail over.
Right.
So you have to actually yank the cord out to make it fail over.
Or in
there
the software
is
you can
a
toggle.
setting, you can choose which one to take priority. What is that?
It's
sound.
Oh, someone's on the roof.
Oh, great, lovely.
Well, you're going to hear some sounds for a while.
There is a setting to choose which of the two connections has priority, so it'll use cellular or Ethernet first, and then if that fails, like which
Right.
means actually is completely offline, not just a bad connection, then it'll auto switch over. So I forgot about that and
Yeah.
did not. I plugged my phone and then didn't remember that it was like, oh no, you actually have to kill the Ethernet completely to have it fail over.
This would not have been a good long-term solution anyway, given that there was not great reception in
Yeah.
the room, but it would have been a solution. And in fact, you even bought extra data
I did, yeah.
on your plan. So that
which I ended up using actually.
Did you?
Between all of the different times I was
my
using
God.
my cell, I ended
Okay.
up using the 3 gigs.
Okay, Sam,
Yeah.
we're going to invoice you for that. All right,
So
that wasn't working. And at some point, I asked Sam to try and get somebody. It's a weekend, and so of course the IT at the hotel isn't there because why would you have IT in the hotel when you're hosting a major event? That would be silly. But he does get a phone number from the front desk for the internet provider, not Comcast, but this management company that manages the data.
Yeah.
And this is where things get really interesting.
we should mention actually, the cache is filling up and we're watching, the numbers go up and down. We're trying these things to bring it back down, but it's not really helping. What people are seeing at this point on YouTube is basically complete freezing of the stream for several seconds, and then it'll come back, and then it'll freeze again. So it's basically unwatchable, like total lockup, couple of seconds of playback, total lockup again, audio and video, and you just get a little spinner in the middle.
Yep.
So not a good experience.
Not a good
and the
experience.
comments were just filling up with, oh my God, buffering,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. Like it was really a bad experience for
Right.
the viewers. And
Petro's got a great question here, a comment about VidSummit, which let's pull this up now because I think it's important to address this. Petro says, I produced VidSummit in 2019. We used live views for connection. I recognize budget constraints, but a solo would have helped with a few unlimited plans.
Yeah.
Absolutely 100% correct. This was an issue that was raised in the initial site inspection. I questioned, how critical is the stream? How many levels of backup do we want? Because that is a great solution, but it would cost money. And it was determined at the time, and keep in mind, this is 6 months before. I think that nobody really understood just how big the event was going to be. It was determined at the time that we didn't need that. Just having the hotel, if the hotel thing didn't work, then it didn't work, and that's would be too bad, and people could watch the replay later. And I think that was essentially the conclusion that we had back then. We just weren't going to bother with that level of backup. And it is budget. I mean, it really is, everything is
came down
budget,
to budget,
right? Nothing
yeah,
is
yeah.
free, everything costs money, and that's what that came down to.
Interestingly,
So it wasn't because of poor planning.
Yeah.
It was deliberately left off.
but interestingly, the attendance numbers were like 60 people in the room, but like 600 on the stream.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So it turns out that the stream was a lot more important, I think, than
Yeah.
originally anticipated. Anyway, so that was how that went. All right, so I get on the phone with the ISP, or they're not the ISP, we're going to call them that, the management company, whatever. And
meanwhile, I'm just on the booth now
Oh,
running
right.
the entire show myself.
yeah, he's got the whole thing by himself.
Audio.
I'm gone for 45 minutes
Right,
on
yeah.
the phone with this guy.
Audio,
And-
switching, trying to pay attention to when to show the computer screen versus, running didn't have any time to run lower thirds.
Right.
And struggling with, are we even online?
Right.
And meanwhile, like grabbing this and like deciding, okay, I'm going to go to switch over to the YoloBox now, cut the web presenters so that we can at least be pushing out something
Someone
for
even
myself.
in the BTS said, Joseph abandoned Aaron. Yeah. I didn't abandon him. I'm trying to
So
solve the
yeah,
problem.
he's like running around on the phone, like, and I just see him going back and forth across the room, and
And yeah, keep in mind that when he's talking about having to switch, he wasn't just switching the projected. This is the reason we had the 2ME. The 2ME, so to back up just for a second, on the ATEM, the ME stands for mix effects. And when you have a 2ME or a 4ME, those are multiple program outs, separate program outs you can do from the same input. And this is deliberately the way this was set up. One ME was going to the projection screen, and another ME was going to the encoder. So that what people saw live was not the same thing that was on the projection screen, because for the most part, what's on the projection screen is just the Resolve demo. Right, the Resolve demo, the projector doesn't need to have the cameras of the widescreen and all that. No, they need the demo. But of course, the live stream needs to be switching between the camera of the person speaking, the wide shot, the audience shot, and so on. So that's where 2MEs came in.
But even the projector showing the demo, it was only the demo computer during their actual presentation. But then as soon as we would go into like Q&A or breaks, it was essentially switching a whole show
Right.
for the projector, because we would cut between the different video clips being played back, show the little animations of like what's coming up next.
And then the Zoom caller, when the Zoom caller was there, we had the Zoom caller on there. So it wasn't like, oh, why didn't you just plug split off the computer and plug that into the projector?
Right.
No, we had to have control over the projector.
Yeah.
So that was the two. So he's managing two separate switching and the audio and dealing with the chaos of the live stream dying. Yeah. So he definitely grew a few more gray hairs during that 45 minutes when I was running around. So what was I doing? I was off having a coffee. I'm like, I'm done with this. No. So I'm on the phone with the ISP, and he's looking at, and he cannot see any problems with the bandwidth. And then he goes, okay, well, let me look at your hardware specifically. Give me the MAC address of your encoder. So we go and pull that up, and I give that to him. And he goes, I don't see it.
And I was like, oh, of course you don't see it, because you see the router that we brought.
Right. Yeah, of course.
So,
the router's probably blocking it. So we give him the MAC address of the router. Yeah, he doesn't see it.
Still doesn't see it.
How the hell can you not see? We have internet. I mean, it's crappy
We're
now, but
clearly
we have
on
it.
the internet.
What's going on? So there's an indication right there that there is some configuration issue. And then he finally goes, well, do you have access to the server room? Yeah. Fortunately, oh, thank God, it was right next to the room that we were in. So it was not on the other side of the hotel. It was literally right there. I go, yeah, I do. I can get in there. So we get that unlocked. I go in there, and he goes, well, I'm going to have you plug directly into our switch. And I'm looking at this server rack and going, which is yours? Oh, let's get on a video call. So we get on a video chat, and now I'm video chatting with the guy, and I'm showing him the rack, and he goes, that one, that's ours. Get closer to it. I get closer to it. It's got a little label on it. He reads the number. He goes, okay, I can identify which one it is. Plugs in. He goes, port 11 is free. Plug into port 11. You're going to take over that one. Great. So we have to get a longer Ethernet cable and run directly from our router into the server room, plug into his port. Okay, now we're getting somewhere, right? So he gives us a fixed IP. We put that in. Nothing. Just
Still nothing,
work.
which doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense. Didn't work. Finally, he says, all right, fine, go to DHCP and reboot. We do that, and then it comes up. And it was funny because he still couldn't see us for another couple of minutes, but he finally saw it. He goes, oh, finally I see it, but I was already online. I'm like, it's working, so we're on. And we're testing, we got the 60 megabit. He goes, okay, I'm gonna allocate plenty of bandwidth to you. You got the 60 meg up. Let's see how this goes. And for a while, it was good.
It seemed to recover. So at this point, I think actually right then, I had stopped both web presenters completely, switched over to the YoloBox to stream, to push the production stream.
Well, you were pushing it over cellular because I was ripping the network apart.
Right. So I was cell streaming with the YoloBox, and what was interesting is that, again, I didn't have great cell bandwidth. So the YoloBox was not a perfect stream still, but what I thought was really interesting about it was the web presenters, when they encounter these network glitches, you see the cache filling up, which is like how you can tell that it's happening, but what ends up happening on YouTube is the stream freezes entirely and then starts again, and then freezes entirely and then starts again. With the YoloBox, it's a lot more like adaptive. So it wasn't great bandwidth, and it was not a flawless stream by any means, because the cell signal in there was just absolute crap, and I couldn't get the phone out any farther. But what it would do, it was like, it would compress it more, or it would skip a few frames here and there of video, but the audio was pretty consistent. So it was still watchable. It was still like you were actually watching a live event instead of just buffering.
Yeah, so kudos to the YoloBox. It handled the poor bandwidth better than the Blackmagic representative did, for sure. Yeah. Okay. So we get in. I'm on this new connection. We reroute everything through there again, and it's good.
Start the web presenter. Then I'm like, all right, I think it's stable. I'm gonna stop the YoloBox stream.
This must have been happening at some point. This is happening during a break.
Some of it was during a break. I don't even remember, honestly. It was just a blur.
But so we got it. We're working. Okay. All right, we're going. We're back up, and this is the problem. And then, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 minutes in or something, we see the cache start to fill up. And we're like,
you gotta be kidding me.
What? No, how is this even possible? And so now we're backwards, and I'm emailing the guy, because now we're on support together. I'm emailing him going, did you change anything? Or, no, I didn't have to change anything. I just said that we lost bandwidth. Do you see anything wrong there? And he pulls, he goes, nope, we were clean here. And then suddenly it frees up. It's back up again. Oh, did you change something? Because now it's good. He goes, I didn't do anything. Great. So this is mysterious what's happening here.
Yeah. And it really, it's like a pretty dramatic change. Like, you'll see the cache fill up, you will get the reports in chat about the buffering, and then suddenly it would also just clear up and be totally fine.
Totally fine. So before we get to the solution, let's back up and talk about the audio problems that we were having.
Oh yeah, okay.
So again, we had set it up so that we were controlling all audio in the house. We're feeding audio to the HDMI port is how we just inject the audio in and send it over there, and that way we're controlling what's in the house. There were two problems with this, which we did not anticipate. Well, one I should have anticipated, but there are two problems with this. The only way we could have done this was a day of testing and actually doing a full-on live stream with people watching on the other end to understand what was happening. The problem we had was that the audio levels had to be the same going to the house and going to the stream. And so by the time he got the levels good to the stream, in the house, it was too loud, massively too loud.
And the only control over the house speakers we had was a volume button on the wall to turn it up and down. And we lowered it down as low as it goes, and I still had to push it too high for the stream, and it was too loud in the room.
And so basically we had either the minimal control we had was either too loud in the room and it would be feeding back through the mics, or it was so quiet that the room couldn't hear the presenter.
Yep.
And we had to just find a balance point where it was definitely not as loud as we would have liked, but it's kind of the only choice that we had. The second, and that's again because we're using a single mic with a audio interface that doesn't have the capability to do different levels out to different outputs, because that wasn't something we anticipated needing. And yeah, so I guess that was that. And then the second problem, someone somewhere along the line said the stream is out of sync with the audio. I go and I check it, and I go, of course it is, because we need to put a delay in the audio, because of course the video that's coming off of the cameras over HDMI is delayed by a handful of frames, about 6 frames on the BGH1s, and I had never programmed that in. So I go, that's an easy fix. I jump onto the ATEM, I go into the frame delay, and I pop in 6. And as soon as I do that, everybody in the house turns around and looks at me, and I can hear it through my headphones. Oh shit! I just introduced this echo into the house.
Yeah.
Crank it back to 0. Well, I guess they're getting a out of sync stream, and that's just all there is to it.
Yep.
Oops.
So not great. I'm got 1 ear on the headphones the whole time, and I'm trying to balance between making it loud enough for the stream, which I'm watching the little meter and it's low, but also not causing feedback in the house. And the feedback was the constant problem that we were fighting against the whole day, because the microphones were going into the board that we're sending back out to the house. So there's always a risk there, and you can manage it if you can set the levels right. But that was the struggle for the audio. That was a struggle for the audio.
Okay, so now we're on this dedicated internet connection, but it's still going to poop. And then a break happens. We get these 15-minute breaks.
And then it cleared up, and I was like, wait a second. This is not a coincidence. This is not a coincidence. Every time we go on this 15-minute break, suddenly the stream clears up and there's no longer any buffering issues.
It's not like every time we were noticing it before. We just noticed it. We go, oh my god, or he noticed it.
But and I thought back to it, and I was like, this has been happening. And I didn't really make the connection until finally that one time. So at that point, I was like, hey, can we make an announcement to tell people to stop downloading stuff? Because I also realized that I had started to look around people's laptops, and this was not something we had been
known or anticipated.
Yeah, we didn't know this was going to happen, but a lot of the presentations were actually follow along with this project kind of thing, which was actually really cool.
Cool, and kind of crazy because they were moving fast, but
they were moving fast. But the presenters talking about a Resolve project and going through stuff, and you could download that Resolve project, open on your computer, and then also see what they would follow along and make your own adjustments. Very cool thing to do.
Sure, and most of the projects are probably multi-gigabytes.
Exactly.
And everybody's downloading.
them
throughout the day.
Throughout the day. So, and again, to be clear, they're on Wi-Fi, hotel Wi-Fi. We have now a wired connection that bypasses all of the hotel network and goes directly into that ISP's uplink. So we're not sharing the same internal system at all, much less Wi-Fi. And but there was still this coincidence of every time people get off their computers, the bandwidth clears up. So we had to make an announcement to everybody in the room to say, please stop downloading everything live during the session. Instead, please do this during the breaks or do this in your room the night before.
Yeah. So if you don't already have it, you just watch the screen. You can't.
Yep.
And they fixed it.
And then sure enough, everybody came back from, after that next session, it was flawless. Perfect stream.
Yeah.
No buffering. And we were like, oh my God, are you serious?
So that's all it was. from the beginning.
From the beginning.
Was just all these people in the room downloading over Wi-Fi, logging.
And for whatever reason, the actual internet connection the hotel has meant that it did not have the capacity to have everybody downloading all that stuff while we were pushing a stream up.
Right, which is strange because they're downloading, we're uploading. It shouldn't have mattered, but just capacity somewhere in the pipe, the capacity.
It's Comcast cable internet, so
God only knows. So by the end of the first day, our bandwidth issues are resolved, and they're great, and we are rejoicing. It is wonderful. This is good. We still have the audio issues, but we start having ideas of how we can resolve this. And so at the end of the first day, that's everything, right?
I think that's everything.
That's everything we wanted to talk about the first day. So just scrolling through our notes here. Break. There's all audio out of sync. We hit that. Oh, your Sennheiser mic thing had the range issues.
Yeah.
Right. So he had this little receiver and transmitter. We got a mic from the ResolveCon team, a handheld mic, little XLR mic. You plug that in. We have the receiver that's plugged into.
It's a cute little thing. It pops onto the bottom of a mic, so it's no cables or anything.
But unfortunately, the range wasn't quite there. So if the mic was at the very front of the house, it would drop out a bit. We ended up taking the receiver and putting it onto a basically like a light stand and raising it up way up in the air. And that
it's actually my Insta360 selfie stick.
360 selfie stick. There you go.
So it raised it 4 feet in the air, and it helped.
It down on the table. It helped.
Helped a ton, but yeah, the room was about 30 feet deep, and clearly that was the limit of that thing, especially with all the computers in there.
Yeah, we did end up on the second day running an XLR cable to that mic because Casey was going to be on stage as far away as he could possibly be. We had 2 presenters on stage on wireless labs, so we had to have them on the handheld, and we did not have faith that it would be consistent, so we just ran an XLR cable up there. That was fun. That was one of those 2 minutes before, we can fix this.
Yep. Okay, we're getting some questions about the audio situation.
Okay.
Well, actually, first for the internet, Chris says, although the management agency had separate equipment, it was a shared pipe out. Yeah, so basically, they come in with this box and they say, give us internet into this box, and then we will provide internet to the rest of the hotel and deal with all the bandwidth allocations. So yeah, one internet pipe. Okay, so audio stuff. Eric. Can't test 60 people in the room downloading Resolve projects during the presentations.
Exactly.
Nor did we even know that was going to be happening.
I had no idea.
So yeah, people are asking about why couldn't we feed XLR in? Because there was no XLR into the house.
Into the house, yeah, there wasn't.
The only options we had to run audio into the house were HDMI or the 1/8 inch jack next to the HDMI port.
Right, and that we're going to come to. That's our next topic because that's how we resolved it in the end. Yeah. Let's see.
So
Rocky, hey Rocky, good to see you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Hyperdeck the worst. You really need 3 streams. Yeah, 3 streams, 1 person in virtual. Yeah, for real. It would have been great to have a dedicated audio person, and then the 2 of us on the switching. That would have been ideal. But
and
wasn't.
Also, I just want to emphasize again, it's been a long time since I've done live in-person conference events like this, and the last time I did do them, I've always insisted that I get an audio feed.
Right.
That house audio is handled by somebody else. I'm doing video, and I'll just mix in your audio to the video, and that's how I've always done it. So I've never had to deal with house audio before, even in those situations.
Yeah. Here, click on that. Live video solutions. I've tested networks before events and had the same experience when you go live. Things stop working for some reason. Move to the Teradek Video X with multiple internet connection. Yeah, I would have loved that, but again, it just wasn't in the budget. It was not part of the budget, unfortunately. Okay, this is what we're going to effectively guess to. I missed your patching diagram explanation. Was there a reason you couldn't run the mixer's output to the house and an aux output to the ATEM separately? The mixer that we had didn't have that level of control.
You know what? Actually, now that you say that out loud, I think it did, because when we reconfigured things for the second day, there were 2 different subgroups, 2 different ways to send submixes on the mixer. One is one has these buttons that you just toggle on and off, so it shares the main fader, and the other one doesn't have the buttons; it just has knobs. And I used that so I could adjust the computer volume in the room independently of the computer volume on the stream.
Interesting.
So we could have used that one instead.
Interesting.
I think.
I don't know. You were on audio. I don't know. And we'll come to at the end what we should have done differently, would have done differently. I wish I had brought my X-Air, but I didn't want to rip it out of the rack. It didn't seem like it was necessary, so I didn't.
Yeah. That would have been nice. Anyway, what mixer was it? It was a Yamaha
MG12.
I think I put it in my description. So.
It does have outs, but
Yeah.
We're not audio experts. Let's put it. Let's,
MG12XU.
Oh, Eric knew.
Yeah.
MG12XU. So it does have some level of multiple outputs. Anyway, that's where we were. Okay, so the original plan. So are we ready to go to? Is there any other questions? We're ready to move on. Let's move on to day 2 because day 2 is where things get pretty.
This is.
So yeah, back to now we're at day 2. Ah, look, it's a happy face. We like day 2. Day 2 is much better. Audio. At the end of the day, Monday, we realized we have to totally rethink our audio setup. And we decide we're going to go back to what was the original plan, which is a double mic, everybody. We can just separate the audio. We're going to put the house labs on for the house audio, and we're going to put our labs on for the stream and do it separately.
One of the main reasons we wanted to go that route was because, again, our limited options of feeding a house mix, but also because we assumed that the house microphones would have their own built-in feedback killer and just sort of be better tuned for that space.
Right.
So if we don't touch the audio, the microphone audio in the house, we're assuming that it's configured properly, which it in fact was.
Which it was.
Yeah.
Right. So now we need to run audio. We still need to run audio into the house for the computer audio and the Zoom audio. So the computer demo audio and the Zoom audio. Yep. So that we still have to run in. So now we have to go to Guitar Center and get a...
We were out of cables.
We're out of cables. We had to get a 3.5 mil to XLR cable.
To get from the stage computer back.
Right, so that's to go from the stage computer, plug into the output on the stage computer, run that all the way back. So that's a long XLR cable, which fortunately we didn't need. I bought a expensive long XLR cable hoping we didn't actually need it, and we didn't because I had enough. We chained a few together, we had enough. And got that audio into the mixer. And then to, okay, so that brought the audio into the mixer from the computer. Now we have to get the audio from the mixer back out to the house.
Which we were feeding audio in over HDMI.
Right. So now we need to...
So the audio, the house audio we were feeding on the first day was coming from the ATEM, SDI to HDMI conversion, HDMI fiber cable to the back of the room.
Right.
Super straightforward.
But
now we need to feed audio from the mixer so that I can create a submix in the mixer of just the Zoom computer and the demo computer.
Right.
Minus the mics.
So
I was going to use the the off switches to toggle the mics off. I ended up using the faders, which could have solved something the first day. But that meant we have analog audio now that we need to mix with the SDI video out of the
So now,
ATEM.
This begs the question, how do you get analog audio injected into the HDMI video going to the projector?
And somehow we had enough spare converters to make it work.
Well, we got one from the ResolveCon folks.
Yeah. But it happened to be there.
Yeah. We're like, oh my God, this doesn't work.
So it was SDI analog in to...
Well, start from the ATEM.
HDMI, ATEM.
ATEM is SDI out. So the ATEM 2ME is all SDI. There's no HDMI. So it's SDI out, which includes the audio mix.
Yep.
That SDI goes into an SDI to HDMI converter.
Yep.
Normally, before we had messed with it, that was the end of it. HDMI converter, off it goes. But now we need to go into there's a box that is an HDMI to SDI box. This is a bigger ATEM Blackmagic converter that also has a separate audio input. And through dip switches, you can choose to bring in the HDMI audio or bring in the analog audio. But it's HDMI in. So first we go from the ATEM's SDI out, convert that to HDMI, plug that HDMI into this converter box with the analog audio, mux those, and then that spits out SDI, but we got to get back to HDMI. So now we have another SDI to HDMI converter, and then the fiber cable.
Yeah.
And it worked. Three converters, daisy chained, and it worked. And we actually were having glitches on the projector during that day and thought that it must be this Frankenstein's monster that we built here. So we're checking the power on it, make sure getting a dedicated power instead of USB power wasn't helping. Finally went up and realized that the wall plate is a piece of crap and the cable on there was wiggly and loose, and so we just kind of taped it to the wall, held it in place, and then it was fine. We didn't have problems the first day, but the second day, the port decided that it was just going to die. So,
so that let me make a audio mix in the mixer to turn down the microphones, to not send the microphone audio into the house, but I could send the Zoom computer and the demo computer into the house and adjust those volumes separately than what was on the stream.
Correct, which was critical to this. The one thing we gave up with this is sending a mix minus to the Zoom caller. So now we are relying on Zoom's echo cancellation to remove the caller, which we've both done in the past and it's worked great. We didn't want to rely on that for this, but we had to for the second day, and it turned out to be fine.
Right. So the audio mix that goes back to the Zoom computer included the Zoom computer's audio back to itself. But Zoom's
Echo cancellation
is
phenomenal.
great.
So that worked out great. Yeah. So that, and then that, because it was now separate, the audio running into the ATEM was no longer the audio that was being used for the house, which means now I could add in my 6-frame delay, and everything came into sync.
Yep.
That was the other critical part of it that we had not really anticipated, should have anticipated, but didn't. So now we've got perfect audio, and the stream is working.
Yep.
And all is good.
Almost perfect audio. Should I talk about the couple of little audio tweaks I had to do during?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
So we're on 2 totally separate systems now. It was a little bit of a logistics challenge of just handing the microphones to the right people. Of like, every time you hand someone a microphone, you have to make sure that you're handing them 2 microphones, one of which is a hotel system, one is our system, and that got a little complicated because hotel had 2 handhelds, 1 lav, and we had 2 labs, 1 handheld, so it was an interesting puzzle to put together, but it worked out. But the biggest challenge with that system was if I was feeding audio into the house, which was mainly the demo computer and the Zoom, it was the audio I was feeding to the house. During the Zoom call, it was a panel situation. If it had been only a Zoom call, it was fine. So like Daria's presentation, fine, because it's just, that's the only audio source in the program. But when there's the panel on the stage and a Zoom caller, the Zoom person talks, which I'm blasting through the house speakers. The people are sitting on the stage with lav mics that then pick up that sound. It's not a feedback loop because I'm not taking their lav mic and sending it back to the house speakers, but it does sound like room ambience. Like it sounds echoey, roomy, whatever, right? It's not good sound.
Yeah.
And I was noticing comments on the stream like, oh, this audio sounds bad. And I was like, okay, what's going on? And then I listened to it and I'm like, oh, it's because the lav mics are picking it up. So basically, the entire time during that session, I'm sitting there like watching people's lips and body movement and watching Daria's mute icon to be like, who's going to talk next? And anytime Daria is talking on Zoom, I drop the lav mics down. And as soon as I can tell she's about to stop and someone's going to comment, I have to bring their audio levels back up.
Right.
And when I did that, it was great because then super clear audio from Zoom, no echo, and then bring the lav mics back up when they're going to talk. And then a similar problem with the demo computer. When most of the time it wasn't a problem because most of the time the sound coming from Resolve was just sort of while someone was talking. Like they're presenting and they play a timeline and you want to hear that they're doing something in the background, but it wasn't the focus, except one person's presentation was all about the sound and had like really dramatic sounds and music coming from the Resolve computer. So when that came blasting over the house speakers, his lav mic was picking up that sound and it sounded like absolute crap again. So again, for that one I had to drop his lav while the demo computer was playing so that we were sending crisp audio to the stream, and it worked. I managed. It was a lot of work. If you looked at behind the scenes video, I almost the entire time have one ear on the headphones and my hands are on those faders and just doing that the whole time.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work, and that is not something I am used to doing, but it worked.
No, definitely. Vincent has said that a digital mixer would certainly have solved so many issues. You could have used Dante virtual sound cards for audio over Ethernet, supreme quality, and can ride on your existing network. 100%. Didn't anticipate this, so didn't bring my X-Air, which isn't Dante, but still would have been a better
enough
solution for
knobs.
this.
Yeah.
B, by the end of Saturday, day one, I was fully prepared to go out and spend $2,000 on a new mixer because I kind of want a Dante setup. But we're in Eugene, Oregon, and there's nothing. Yeah. The Guitar Center, I even asked them, they kind of laughed at me. They go, we don't keep that kind of stuff in-house. We can order it. Yeah, it doesn't help. There's nothing around. There's nothing local that I can go get. That's something we talked to the crew about. I think next time we do this event, it needs to be in a bigger city where you can run out and buy anything or rent anything.
Yeah.
But we just didn't have the option, unfortunately. And I saw Darren Mustin's in the house. Darren, good to see you.
Nice. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for joining. Then, okay.
Aaron says it also helped a lot when Daria put headphones on. So actually, she was not causing any of the problems with the audio. No. Not at all. She was extremely on top of it, like was muting her own microphone when she wasn't talking. The reason that everybody thinks that her putting on headphones was solving that was because that's when I figured out I need to drop the lav mics. And I started doing it because someone commented in the chat like, "Oh, the audio is bad." And then she actually noticed that, so she put on headphones thinking it was her fault.
Yeah.
It was not. And that's when I realized, oh, I better drop the lav mics. And then
she was the greatest on. So, Dottie, I don't think you're watching. I wish you were, because you were so good at when he had built SuperSource so that we could have side-by-side video, and she's watching the Zoom feed, and we'd switch to a SuperSource, and she'd realize she's slightly out of frame, and so you'd see her shifting her seat to get into frame. Yeah, very on top of it. That was great.
Actually, that's another part of the setup we didn't really mention, is that we were feeding video back to Zoom, and we were feeding the program video.
Right.
Not just like mute video or webcam video.
Right.
We actually had a feed coming from the ATEM back into the Zoom call, so they could see what was
They knew it was
live.
on air when they were on air. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So we're on day 2. We already did the day 2 start, right? So that's where we are. Everything was going much better. What do I have a day 2 on here?
Oh, so some of the fun stuff, basically things started going well.
Right, so now we had time.
We had time to like think and be creative again, and then I realized, oh, we didn't really like actually use any of the lower thirds on the first day because it was just chaos the whole day.
Yeah.
So I started setting up companion buttons because we actually hadn't set up companion either.
Right.
Joseph had left the Stream
I
Deck.
left my Stream Deck behind. The one thing I left behind.
I was like not super motivated to build companion buttons for the first day anyway, because we were already stretched for time, but we didn't have the actual buttons. So I can use it on my iPad or on the computer, and it still is helpful, but I wasn't super motivated to allocate the time it would take to do that on the first day. But on the second day, things were much smoother, and I actually took some time to build out some buttons to let, also because now I had a day of experience of doing that event of like, oh, I know that I'm typically changing both the projector and the main stream to the next up clip when they say this word or cut to the ad break or whatever on both screens. Mm-hmm. So I want one button to press that does it both places instead of having to frantically use the ATEM software. So I made a whole bunch of companion buttons, and it helped a ton.
Yeah,
it was so nice being able to just have a button for the lower third to do,
Yeah, but one button would start the animated lower third. It's funny because he built them in the order of the presenters, and then I didn't realize that
we had a cue sheet, which was
cue
nice.
sheet, right?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that the first presenter who was actually doing a demo wasn't the first on the list.
The host introduced the day, right? So
we put,
in our cue sheet, it's like, oh,
well, there's
Casey.
Casey and then somebody else.
And that was Sam, right? No, Dan. Dan was the
Dan,
other
right.
host, yeah. So
And
Dan
I'm
and Casey were the first two in the cue sheet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, cool, lower thirds. Dan, Casey, and then the first presenter. And then I tell Joseph, like, hey, the buttons are in the order of the cue sheet of like who's talking. And
I'm not even paying attention to the names. We're just like, okay, second button, go. And then somebody in the chat goes, that's not Dan. Running the wrong lower third. That's my fault. What are you gonna do? So,
But we got the hang of it.
We got that. We got the buttons. Then we started doing some fun stuff. You were building SuperSource using
Mix Effect. Yeah. So Mix Effect I had that on this iPad with me, and I knew it was going to come in handy. So one of the things I really like about it is the SuperSource controls in it. So SuperSource on the ATEM is kind of a pain to configure because you're typing in numbers and like.
And the only way to save a SuperSource layout in the ATEM is to create a macro.
Yeah.
And so that means that you design the layout, and then you start recording a macro, and you wiggle everything, or tickle it, as I call it. You tickle each component to rearrange it. Whereas MixFX, it actually has presets saved. So I got to start using MixFX, which also ties into Companion, doesn't it? So you can control MixFX from Companion now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So so we could go back to using it.
Oh, I don't think I can. I don't have anything I can connect to show here.
But if you haven't seen it, MixFX is an iOS app, and it is lovely. Yeah. It really made setting up these custom SuperSource layouts really easy.
So I could like drag the box on the screen to like adjust it to the right spot, and then once I got the layout looking right in the preview, then press a button to save that layout and quickly jump back to it. So
yeah, absolutely.
And we were using SuperSource a lot between the panels and the Zoom presentation where I wanted to cut out the Zoom UI and
Yeah, and then at this point again, we had time to actually relax and think about how to make things better, and we were having fun with different transitions, and like I did an auto cycle for one of the breaks, so it wasn't just a static graphic. We were just auto cycling through the different cameras, which I built as a companion button, and with a companion button with a command on it to basically press itself.
Yeah.
So then the only way to stop it was to delete the button, but it worked.
Yeah, it worked.
It's kind of fun.
Oh, one of the other differences we had the second day, because now we were both sitting there and not frantically running around, was we actually decided clear division of roles. So I was on audio and mixing the projector feed.
Which
and
didn't have to change that often.
Didn't have to change that often, but it was mostly just during the transitions of like, speaker's done, go to break, come back. That was my responsibility to switch on ME2, and then Joseph was on ME1, which was the stream. I basically stopped cutting anything to the main stream, except for some of the companion buttons would affect both.
Would affect both of them, which is really neat. So yeah, again, that's a really cool thing about the ME, and you can about having two MEs, and you can actually with the two MEs you can have if you're on ME1, one of the sources can be ME2. So it's easy to say whatever he's putting on the projector. Oh, I want that on the live stream. All I had to do is hit ME2 as a source, and then even if he continued to switch what was on the projector, I would keep getting that without having to do anything. That was pretty neat.
Yep.
Yeah, the multiple MEs is. That is an awesome capability. It really is.
Yeah.
And that's something you only get on the bigger ATEMs. That does not exist on any of the ATEM minis. Rearranging the lower thirds. So the lower third, animated lower thirds were not necessarily in a great place once we built a super source, but able to reposition those using the upstream keys, just move them around and put them in a better position. That was quite flexible and quite cool. You built a new static dual lower third on the fly, and that was one of those. We had backups of all the lower thirds as still graphics, so we had the animated ones and stills. Aaron took the two stills, I don't know if he took a screenshot or whatever, of the presenters where they're sitting, but for when where there are two people on stage, rearranged and just quickly built a lower third for that to drop in so I could pull that up. And then I wanted to be able to fade that in.
Right.
So that was a fun thing. So all the animations, of course, were animated, right? So they fade in, they do a thing, and they fade out. Now we've got these two static ones. Okay, fine, they're not animated, but it was kind of a drag to just turn them on and turn them off again. And so I quickly built, and this is where Companion is just awesome, I quickly built a preset that would load the same video into the preview, load the static lower third on it, and then crossfade between them so that the lower third would fade in. Although we did realize at some point, why didn't we just do this on a downstream key? Because that has auto built into it. I think because you'd put it on the upstream key, because that's just what we were using, and I just didn't even think, well, I'll move it to the downstream key. So it's one of those, we found a solution. It may have not been the right solution, but it worked, so it worked.
All on the fly.
All on the fly. Keeping in mind, this is all on the fly. Anything else from that day? I don't think
No, I think that's about, the day went quite smoothly the second day, honestly. Super Source was great. The segments for running the clips went a lot smoother now that we could actually focus on more of the content of the program rather than scrambling. Ran the wired mic for Casey when we had, because there was one panel where Casey was like interviewing 3 people, like the Zoom, and 2 people in person, so we needed 3 sources in person, and I was not willing to trust the wireless mic for that range for that long.
So that's when we ran the XLR.
But yeah,
it was great.
Honestly, I thought
day 2 was awesome.
Day 2 was awesome.
Day 2 was very awesome.
We were able to, I really enjoyed being able to it felt a lot more relaxing, and it freed up space in my head to then think about the more creative aspects of it.
And that on our kind of powwow at the end, that was one of the big notes is a day for setup is fine, but you need another day for testing. We should have had 2 setup days.
Yeah.
Should have built in.
We should have done all the wiring and load in on Thursday so that we could have a dry run on Friday.
Right, and have a proper dry run. Not meaning that everybody has to run through their full demo unless they want to, fine. But to have the time to really, as if it was live, stream it to an unlisted show, have someone in another room watching that, looking for issues.
And I would have at least liked to have the transitions between segments done as if they were real. So I don't care about someone gets up and does a 40-minute presentation. It's pretty easy to do that. That's easy to cut and deal with live for us. But what happens when they get off the stage? Who's going to come up next? Yeah. Is it an in-person host with a handheld mic? Is it how do they introduce the Zoom people? None of that stuff that stuff's not written down in the script, right? It's just you just do it.
Right.
So that's the kind of stuff that would have been useful to run through in actual real time, and it only would have taken, an hour or something to just go through all the transitions.
Oh, cameras, I didn't really talk about that. The way that the cameras are configured and controlled.
Oh, yeah.
I was using BGH1, so I ripped 4 BGH1s, or I ripped 5 out of the studio, but we just used 4 of them. Had 2 of them, all on sticks, of course, 2 of them back where we were, pointing at the audience, so putting at the stage, a wide on the stage and a tight on the presenter. And then two at the front. Initially, there was one for the crowd and one that was out in the lobby, so I could just kind of cut to that on the intermissions, whatever. But I didn't really use it that much, so the second day I moved that inside, so I had two on the front audience. And again, those were on wireless using the Axoon something HE. I forget the name of it, but an Axoon wireless transmitter. Those work great, extremely low latency. Oh, thank you, Tom. Tom's. Can you pull that up?
Yeah.
So Tom, it's keying out the. Oops. Tom was watching the behind the scenes and kept throwing the little bit of money that's going, here's your snack money, here's your snack money. That was awesome. Thank you, Tom. We appreciate that. Anyway, so control of the cameras, because of the BGH1s, I have control of them over the network. They can run wireless, and historically it's not been. The BGH1s, when they first came out, the wireless connectivity wasn't that great. You could get one on, no problem, but as soon as you got more than one, it didn't work that well. Now that's mostly been resolved, and it has been resolved, and you can get all four cameras up on a wireless control, no problem at all. And that was wonderful, so I could switch between them, make any control changes to like focus or exposure or whatever. That was awesome. But as soon as the house filled up with people on their phones and Wi-Fi, there was too much Wi-Fi traffic, and I couldn't access the cameras. And keep in mind that these cameras have Wi-Fi built into them, but they don't have external Wi-Fi antennas. So there's no good way for them to get a really good strong signal.
And this was just Wi-Fi interference at this point, because we brought our own router that we broadcast our own Wi-Fi hotspot, so that like my iPad and my computer were on our Wi-Fi, which was not the hotel's Wi-Fi system.
Right. It's not like we were using the hotel's Wi-Fi. So yeah, it was.
But even then, it was just
interference. Just too much garbage in the air. So I lost control of the cameras. So that's. Well, I guess we're going to come to what we would do differently. So, but I would have wired them. That would have been a better thing to do. And anything else about the cameras? No, having the BGH1s there to do that, to be able to control the cameras from the computer, and just in case anybody hasn't seen that recently, let me switch to, that is on one of these, where's my PC switch? Right, the Windows button, there you go. That is what the software looks like. So now you're seeing the software control for the computer that is actually running the cameras, controlling the cameras right now. So that's, there you go, that's what that looks like.
I'm really tempted to get some of these cameras now.
I know, they're so good.
Bad.
They're so awesome. Yeah. So that was how that went. Chris is asking if we were on 2.4 or 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi.
I don't remember what that Wi-Fi was set to.
It was the dual.
It has both. I don't know how it was set up.
I don't think the BGH1s do 5. I think they only do 4, because I don't recall seeing both options in there. I don't really remember. Anyway, so there was that. Anything else about the cameras? I guess that's enough about the cameras.
Yeah.
And they were on sticks and had nice fluid heads, and I didn't do really any tracking while they're, because they weren't walking around on stage, they'd be in one position. But some presenters, they'd demo here, and then when they'd talk, they'd go over here, while others would just stay in one place. So for a couple, I had to do a little bit of a wider shot.
Some people were a lot taller than others,
Casey's tall, others were a little shorter, and yeah, so I adjusted for that, but that was fine. Every time somebody new would go up, I just run it over to that camera, reframe it a little bit. And that worked out great. And then, that's what I was cutting for the live stream, was between the presentation, the actual demo, and the presenter. And then on the second day, Aaron built some super sources so that I could have both on screen at once, which we didn't have the first day, which worked out really nice. So yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. We are in. We have problems up here because we have a couple of notes of specific problems that we wanted to talk about that are not things we've already covered. We didn't know which encoder was actually being streamed.
Right.
This is a YouTube limitation that is now infuriating.
Yeah.
If you don't know, with YouTube, when you're doing a live stream, you have a primary and a secondary server that you can stream to. And the idea being, you got a critical show, you can stream simultaneously the same program to both primary and secondary. And in YouTube, if your primary goes down, YouTube will automatically switch over to the secondary, kind of a thing.
I've done some experiments with that on my own channel, on the live streams I do, where we actually yank out the cord live and see what happens, and watch how it behaves to fail over. And I've learned some interesting things, mainly that it'll fail over pretty seamlessly when the one stream goes down, but it will never it'll never switch unless the current one goes down. So it won't, once you start pushing primary back up, it's not going to auto switch back to the primary. It's only going to make the switch if the current active stream goes down.
So you have to physically cut it off. Stop the stream.
If you fail from your primary to secondary, now you're on your low bandwidth cell upload, and then you get your main internet back, and you want to switch it back to the primary, you have to actually stop the secondary stream.
Right.
To have it fail back over to it.
So and apparently I didn't know this, but you had said that which one is live, the primary or the secondary, it's not just going to go straight to the primary. It gets whichever it gets first. And so I would start both encoders simultaneously, not realizing that, start them both simultaneously, and then
now we don't know.
It was starting on stream 2, maybe it was starting primary, or maybe it was on secondary. And that's the problem, is that YouTube doesn't tell you. There's nowhere in there that it indicates to you which stream it's using. And at one point, I was fiddling with the bandwidth of the stream, seeing how far I could push it. On the second day, we had the good bandwidth. Like, can I push it a little bit higher? And it wasn't making any difference. And we finally realized, oh, it's probably because we're actually streaming from the secondary, not the primary.
Yeah.
So that's something YouTube really needs to fix. The only way to know is to put something different onto the secondary stream.
Which we did a little test.
We did a test.
So I made a little black box in the corner, put it on one of the, output it to only one of the web presenters, and kept the other web presenter on just an aux out.
And then we watched the stream and waited for the black box to appear or not appear, and it didn't. Okay, well, now we know. Yeah, that was dumb. They really need to fix that.
But yeah, it doesn't seem like it'd be that complicated. Just show us which one is active in the YouTube studio.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, on the second day, we had one internet glitch. We saw the cache go, not very much, but it started to move off of 3%, which, looking at mine right now, streaming this 4K, I've been at 3% solid this whole time, which is fantastic. That's what you wanted. That's where you wanted to see it. So we suddenly saw it starting to dip, and we're going,
I'm like, no.
Who's on the Wi-Fi? But
the first thing we could do was reduce our own bandwidth usage.
And so we turned off the backup, and that
just cleared it up.
And so we decided, and we're not going to bother streaming the backup.
Yeah.
It's just kind of pointless.
Things were pretty stable at that point.
Things are pretty stable.
One of the reasons we were streaming, again, both on the same network, uplink, was because when there were problems with when the uplink was unstable, again, they handle failures pretty poorly. So they would lock up, and you'd push the off button and it just wouldn't turn off. It wouldn't do anything. So we were just yanking the power cord out.
Literally had to yank the power multiple times on those things. That was a bit frustrating.
And if we didn't have the ability to do that, because it would have literally cut the whole stream, then so having two of those was very useful. So we could just
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, actually, one more thing on this.
Yeah.
You reminded me, the thing that I tested this morning. And the question here, YouTube will tell you that there's a mismatch in settings between primary and backup, but won't tell you which is actually presenting. So interestingly, I did a test this morning to figure this out. It'll complain about different frame rates and different resolutions, and it wants those to match. But you can stream a 6 megabit primary and 1 megabit to the secondary, and it doesn't complain.
Right.
Or at least didn't this morning when I tested it.
And this, we were going to talk about this at the very end, or what we should have done differently. So let's save that, because what he's about to say is actually really, really cool.
Yeah.
Let's save that for that part. So I think that's everything on the problems that we wanted to cover. So now we go into the what worked. There we go. So now we're into the what worked section, and this is just other things we haven't already talked about. Obviously, we talked about a lot of things that worked. There are two on our notes. The Axion transmitter, so I grabbed it so that I could give you the model number. Also, they're sponsoring one of my future videos, so I want to give them an extra little shout out here. But this is the Cineview HE, and these have four, I'm not going to hook them all up, but they have 4 antennas on them, each the transmitter and the receiver. There we go. Get 4 antennas on them, and so it was great. I mean, there was zero interference, even with all that Wi-Fi crap in the room.
Yeah.
All the other, God only knows what is going on in there. And it's not like it was huge range, but 30 feet? Yeah.
We were about
30 feet.
maybe slightly longer for the one in the corner because it was diagonal, and it was 30 feet straight shot.
Right. Oh, and the first day it was out in the other room.
Oh, yeah.
And it was still flawless. Yeah. Absolutely flawless. So shout out, these Axion Cineview HEs were fantastic, and they're very low bandwidth. They're the lowest, very low latency. The lowest latency of any that I've used so far. So I got a video coming up on those. That worked, and then the lift meter. We already talked about that. Having this thing, my God, this was awesome. I bought this, it's not cheap, but I bought it because, it's kind of multiple justifications. I had so many audio issues on this show, I finally wanted a way to monitor that, and I knew that I had this event coming up and it would be very useful for that. And then since I got it, I realized that you can actually plug it into your computer and feed using a plugin that it comes with, or you can download, from Resolve, and I guess you can do it from Final Cut or Premiere as well, but I can feed the audio out of Resolve into there. So when I'm doing my final audio mix, I have this on my desk turned on, and I'm watching the lifts meter on there to check my audio over time, and it's amazing.
It's very cool.
It's a very cool one.
I actually just got one last week.
It was too cool. You had to go buy one. Yeah, they're awesome. All right, so that was it for the things we hadn't already talked about at what work that we wanted to mention.
Yeah.
And then the last one is what we would change.
What should we have done,
What should we have done
differently?
Was that W supposed to be capitalized or not? Now I'm questioning my change at the end. All right, Wi-Fi stopped working well once the room filled up with people.
Yeah.
So, for me, run Ethernet to each camera. Yeah, I should have run Ethernet to each camera. By not doing it, I didn't have any wires going to the cameras. That's why we went wireless HDMI.
Right.
So that it didn't. You know, obviously there was power over there, so plugged it in. So each camera had a power strip for it with the camera's power plugged in and the transmitter plugged in. And that's all that was on those cameras. There's no monitor on it. There's nothing else. And that was great. You know, would have been nice to have the wireless, the full control of the camera. But those were the two that were up front. Didn't really matter because those were just a wide shot, center room focus.
Yeah.
I even had them on auto ISO so that they would adjust the exposure as lights came on and off.
Right.
So that was fine. The ones at the back, I should have run a wire to them.
And that wouldn't have been a long wire either.
No, it would have not been a long wire. Should have run a wire to them, and we
10
could have
feet or
even
something.
done that because we had
extra wire.
ports, we had the cable.
Yeah.
But
Oh well.
Yeah. Yeah, didn't do that. So would have done that differently.
Comms. That was so. You actually brought the pack.
Brought a comms pack.
And we didn't use it because again the first day things were just pretty chaotic the whole day. But it actually would have been really useful. So we were sitting next to each other about this close, so we could easily like talk
to each other,
and we're talking like a low voice but not whispering,
Right.
and it was fine. But then Sam was like hanging out in the back with us, and he was kind of running the show and like managing people, and he would often come back and like tell us like, hey.
Right.
And he would, be talking to Joseph or me, and then we would have to relay that to the other person, and it would have been really nice to just have at least the three of us, maybe another person, just to be able to be like, hey, I need you to push that button on the wall plate to mute the blah blah blah.
We could
Right,
have a runner on there or something. Yeah. So I have a full comm system. Just because it was a Hollyland thing, and I did a video on that a year or so ago, and it was great. And I brought it, but we
just didn't use it. And it would have been useful.
It would have been useful. We should have used that. Okay, and then the last part here is your cellular thing. So why don't you go back?
Yeah. So, and I tested this morning to see if it would work. We had two web presenters, and we wanted to be able to run a primary and secondary and have that be useful to fail over. And what we realized partway through the day, and then I tested this morning, is you actually can stream like your normal 6 megabit streaming high setting, which is your primary. And I didn't have a good cell signal, but I could squeak up a 1 megabit signal stream from my phone, and it would have been fine. And it turns out you actually can push that 1 megabit to the secondary URL, and YouTube will fail over to the lower bitrate version of the stream, and it'll be fine. And it doesn't complain about the mismatch of bit rates. It does complain about frame rates and resolutions mismatching, but it seemed to be fine. So that would have been a good idea, was take one web presenter, lock it on the mobile connection, so we had a different uplink, set that to really low bandwidth.
So it didn't eat all your data.
Yep, and I would have gone lower than streaming low, so you can make a custom XML profile and set the bitrate you want, and set it to like 1 megabit so that it didn't eat all my bandwidth during the day, and it's only there really as a backup, and that would have been a better plan for even the day one troubleshooting.
Right. And again, since you can with the stream decks, the web presenters, since you can change the bitrate while it's live, then that's okay. We're at 1 megabit or whatever is super low. Now we need it. We could actually just turn it up without having to interrupt the stream. That would have been better.
And even the 1 megabit, it's like, obviously you don't want to run your stream at that low of a bitrate for a very long time, but it is watchable. It is absolutely watchable.
Right. And the audio is going to be quite good.
The audio is still going to be good.
As is a point made in the ResolveCon itself, audio is just as or more important than video. I love it. Audio guys are always making that point. Video guys are like, nah. No, it's for real. I mean, if you're watching a stream and you got bad video, but you can still hear what's going on, you'll watch it. If it's bad audio, you're not watching. You're out. You're bailing out. Yeah.
So
I think that is everything, right?
I think so.
That is it. I don't have. Yep. There's no more slides. That's the last of our notes. Wow. It only took twice as long as we planned on it.
Right.
Sorry, Petra, we missed the other call that we were going to join, but what are you going to do?
Let's see if there's any other questions in here. What guidance did we give to the Zoom presenters in terms of quality framing setup, etc.? I don't think we talked to any of the Zoom people whatsoever. So I don't know if the ResolveCon or ground control crew did talk to them ahead of time. I'm sure they prepped them somewhat, but
these are all professionals and YouTubers, so they have sets. Every presenter had good lighting, good audio, good setup. So yeah, that was no problem at all. Which was great. It's not like I've done plenty of events where you're bringing in people who refuse to do anything more than use their webcam. Like, thanks, no thanks, really.
So basically, you resolved all the problems. Yeah.
Like this is a great quote. The only problem with wireless technology is that there's no wire attached.
Did you just say that?
Carlos.
Yeah.
Said that. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Let's see here. Studio 11 saying, wow, both of you physically in the same studio. It's officially the first in-person collab stream.
No, it's not. We did one in my studio.
Yeah, we did. That's right. That's right.
December.
Yeah, I was up in Portland, so I stopped by and we did one there. Yep. All right, let's see.
It's always fun to see be here in person, because I've seen the behind the scenes of you walking around on your own streams, but it doesn't give you a sense of the space in the same way.
No, definitely doesn't. A little bit off topic, but I'll go ahead and bring it up. Chris, there it goes. Oh, sorry, my trackpad is misbehaving. Chris says, have you seen the reports of YouTube prompting people to sign up for YouTube Premium if they try to watch in 4K? I hadn't heard that specifically. I'd heard that YouTube was considering charging people for 4K, or you only get 4K if you're premium. I don't like that. I think that's kind of dumb. I wish that people would sign up for premium just so that they don't have to watch ads. As it is, I don't run ads mid-roll anymore at all. I only run pre-roll ads, and I encourage people to sign up to join the channel. I'm sorry, I'm going to run this ad now on your channel as well, but I do. I guess, you know what? Because we popped the cards out. I'll get the wrong cards in place.
Yep.
No, I can see it running. I'm going to try one more time. Hold on.
Nope.
Nope. Definitely not. Oh, well. Oh, no. I have no idea. It's a little animated thing to prompt you to join the channel, which gives you access to the Discord. So please do consider joining the channel, as little as $1 a month. And you need to get memberships on yours.
I need some sort of membership thing on mine. Haven't decided if I'm going to do a YouTube membership or not. But in the meantime, I at least have an email newsletter. And that is how you can get notified when I go live, because YouTube's notifications are not super reliable.
Yeah.
And that is linked in my description below.
There you go. Oh, Guy Cochran saying, could you have gone H.265 with HLS with the FFN Pearl to SIP data at half the rate? Well, that was one of the, I didn't mention it here.
Chat's gone.
Oh, I got to turn that back on because my other thing turned it off. Reset. Oops, sorry.
It was there a second ago.
It was there. There.
Yay.
Yeah, that was one of my, I should have brought differently. I should have brought the Pearl with me as well. That would have been instead of using two web presenters, brought a web presenter and a Pearl, just so they were totally different encoders.
And at least we had the
YoloBox.
YoloBox.
This was the backup that I brought, and it worked out. But yeah, I kind of wish I had brought the Pearl. That would have been a good backup. And I have not, so I played a little bit with H.265 and HLS from here doing the 4K. I don't remember now even what it was. There were issues. It wasn't great. And I had emailed Epiphan about it, and I don't remember the status of that now. But anyway, okay. Anything else? Darren says we made them look good. Made him look good. Excellent. Darren, you made yourself look good. You were awesome, dude. All right. Anything else that we want to hit up, or before we bail out of here?
I think
someone loves Mix Effect. Mix Effect's awesome.
Yeah, being able to walk around with a controller for your stream is amazing. It's actually, and along those lines, the companion. So once we had companion set up, I did pull up the buttons on the iPad. So you can bring up the emulator of the Stream Deck as a web page, and that was super handy to have on this screen instead of only as a computer web page. So,
Aaron's saying give Mix Effect Supersource animations a try. I didn't realize that. You told me about that it'll actually animate between the Supersource.
It's really cool.
That's cool. I definitely have to start playing with it more.
We didn't actually have a lot of opportunities to do that. Maybe we could have done it with a panel where I could have made separate boxes for each of the in-person. That we would have had different camera positions too, but didn't have a lot of opportunities for that in this show. But it is a very, very cool feature.
Yeah. I just running through some of the thank yous, putting them up on screen. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Philip. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you find a use for the Live app?
Oh, Live app is another app I use on the iPad. It's I actually have a video coming out about that very, very soon. It is also a very cool app. It's, I would say, less about ATEM control, but more about video playback and overlays and stuff. And I've actually used it for my show to bring my web page for the chat when I'm doing like remote streams, because it can output over HDMI. I had it on my iPad. I did not use it at all. All of the video playback that we were doing was coming from the Hyperdecks, and those weren't causing problems. So that I had no reason to play back videos from this, and we didn't have any other real need for the other features it has.
Yeah. Yep. Josh is saying, in your experience, the Panasonic remote app for the BGH1 is very unreliable. Sadly, on iPhone, on iOS, the remote app is a bit tedious, and it has to do with iOS limitations and how things connect. I've talked to Panasonic a lot about it. It's kind of the best that it can be. Android, it works a lot better because Android allows it to maintain connections in the background and so on. But the desktop app, that's totally different. The Lumix Tether app, it's heaven. That's what you're seeing. Oh shit, wrong button.
Oh no.
Sorry, wrong button. That's what you're seeing here. That is the Lumix Tether app running on a PC that gives me full control over the cameras.
Oh, and he's talking about the macOS remote.
Why did it just fade back automatically? That was weird.
Interesting.
I have no idea. Oh, because it was still running that script from the join thing.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It fades over. Anyway, so perfect.
Comments are gone now too.
And the comments are now gone, so let's bring that back up. And there it is.
Cool.
Okay. Anything else?
Oh, James has a question which I want to. What else can I use as a hands-on switcher for the YoloBox Pro? This is something I keep bugging them about, and if you want this feature, please do email into their support and ask for it, or comment on my videos or their videos. I would love to be able to use Companion with the YoloBox so that I can include it in automations in this way. Because right now you have to use the screen. It's the only way you can control it. You can connect a keyboard and do a little bit of things with it, but I would love to be able to actually be able to program it in Companion so that I can include it in the overall automations.
And it is obviously on the network,
Yep.
and it is an Android-based device,
Yep.
so
it is 100%
it should
possible.
be totally
Yep.
possible. Someone needs to do it. Someone needs to do it. Darren says, enjoying exploring both your channels. So good to meet you both. Thank
You too.
Darren.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure what this question is. On-screen live comments. If you're asking how these comments are being done, that's a great opportunity for you to explain to them exactly how these comments are coming up.
Exactly. So this is a Chrome extension that I wrote and put into the Chrome store. You can find it by searching live chat overlay. I believe I linked to it in my description of my video on my channel. I don't think it's in yours. You should add it.
I should add it. Absolutely.
But what it does is it gives you a external web page you can push comments to, and you basically you go into your stream, you click pop out chat, and that gives you a little window that lets you select the comments and just go to the overhead.
Oh.
So it looks like it's just reframing it's just taking the actual pop out chat of the YouTube comments, and then I can click on one to show it. So you can just click on a comment, it pops it up into a different browser window that gets overlaid into the ATEM. And yeah.
And Aaron just did a little custom thing for our show right now where this is the stream from my live chat, that's the stream from Aaron's, and we can click on either one of those and it loads up. And because it's all browser based, he's got his control on his laptop. I'm looking at the same thing on a display and controlling it from here, which is how I normally control the comments.
Yeah,
Super
which
cool.
is a really cool thing, and I may have to actually build a UI to do this because I didn't write any special code to make this happen right now. I just happen to know how it works, and I'm able to put the right things in the right spot to share the windows on all the right computers. But I very much enjoyed this ability to have us both have different control windows and multiple streams all pushed to the same window. So yeah,
absolutely. Okay, this is a good question.
Your trackpad.
This thing, yeah. Anyway, how would you guys charge for an event like this? Well, okay, so this event was a flat rate. It was, like I said in the beginning, it was kind of low budget overall. There was no separate equipment fee or anything like that. But if some company that wasn't friends came to me and said, "Hey, what would you charge to do this?" For one, it'd be a lot more. For two, I would be charging for the equipment separately. So I'd be charging a rate for our time, right? And then I would charge a separate equipment rental fee, even if I own the equipment, because this is the kind of thing where, what did we decide? We were talking about $20,000 worth of hardware that we brought to do this thing, minimum.
Yeah.
Could have probably been more than that.
Probably more.
And when you're doing an event like this, if you don't own the equipment, where are you going to get it? Well, you go rent it, right? That's normal. So that is a cost of doing business. You just rent the gear. If I own the gear, I should be charging the client to use that gear. It's different if I'm making a video. I don't need to charge necessarily. I mean, I could. A lot of people do. It just depends on how you structure things.
Yeah.
But for an event like this, absolutely that would be a separate fee, would be charging for the
So it's actually interesting that you say that, because I was doing this kind of work a fair bit in about 2015 to 2018, and it was not my full time by any means, which is probably part of why I didn't end up doing it that way. But I would say 4 or 5 events a year, and they were conferences that were sometimes much larger than that too. It would be like 300 people in a ballroom in Portland or whatever, and I would always charge a flat rate for the event, which included everything. Because one of the things event organizers really don't like to do is see breakdowns of charges. And I also don't like presenting people with an itemized list, because what I found, a couple times I tried this, a couple times I would say like, oh, do you want a 2-camera stream or do you want a 3-camera stream? Here's the price for a 2-camera versus a 3-camera. Because in theory, it's more gear and more work for me to deal with 3 versus 2. And they were, slightly different prices, and they would always be like, oh, well, we want the cheaper one. And I was like, well, actually, wait a second. It's not actually that much more work to bring the other camera, and I will deliver a better product with more cameras and more of this stuff. And I'm not also willing to drop the price so low for a 2-camera shoot anyway, or even a 1-camera shoot anyway. Like, there is a minimum that I'm willing to go to this event for. Right. So I just ended up being like, here's what you get, here's what it's going to look like, here's what I'm going to bring, and this is the fee.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah.
Different ways to look at it.
Yeah.
Okay. I think one of the advantages of breaking things out, at least to some degree, is that it does give you the ability to remove something. If they say, the price, let's say that you budget something, like it's a $10,000 event, they go, oh, well, okay, we only have an $8,000 budget. Okay, here's the list. What do you want me to take out? You tell me. I'll take out whatever you want me to take out to get the price down, but that's the budget. That's what it costs to do what you've asked for. And that's a way to negotiate. And you can always say, fine, I'll do it for 8 instead of 10, but this is a more, put it in your hands as to the client, say, okay, you're in control of the cost. You can't take me out, so I cost this, right? But the gear, look at the gear, this is what it's providing. It's another camera angle, it's a backup, it's the live view solo, right? There's a, I don't know what, $1,000 rental or something for that. There's the things. What do you want? Do you want a backup? And then if the stream goes down, and they're like, why isn't it up? Well, you canceled the backup off the list, buddy, so I don't know what you want me to tell you. Yeah, that was your decision. So I like thinking of it that way. I like presenting it that way.
I think if I were to do this again and actually get back into this business, which I'm not doing right now, I probably would start thinking of it more like, rather than camera angles or video playback options, more that kind of thing of like, okay, the value that you're getting is a redundancy or audio is a whole thing too. Because like, again, I never touched the audio for any of those jobs. So.
I would definitely.
Am I hiring an audio person, or is the audio being provided? Because if I'm hiring them, you can pay me for that, and I can bring an audio person, but or you tell the venue to do it. So
yeah, and there are certainly things on the list on the budget that are not negotiable. Oh well, get rid of the audio person. You can handle that. No, no. The audio person is required. You may as well cancel me at that point. Yeah. So I think. Anyway, all right. I think we can wrap this up.
I think so. That was a lot of fun.
Let's wrap this up. That was great. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Thanks for all the questions.
Aaron, PK on the everywheres, and Photo Joseph on the everywheres.
You don't have a lower third for me.
I don't have a lower third for you. Sorry. Mine's been in the corner on your channel this whole time, which yours has probably got a lot more people watching live because your lives are always bigger than mine. So
you've got a good number. I'll drop my link in your chat.
Okay. And I guess I have to drop mine in your chat then, since that's what we're doing.
There we go.
Since we are admins on each other's channels, we can actually post links.
Yep. Here, now I can bring up my lower third, now that it's a comment.
There you go.
There we go.
Oh, right. Nice. That's funny. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks again for tuning in. That was awesome. You know how this works. If you got to think of anything afterwards, you got any questions, drop them in the comments. We'll both keep an eye on this one. Well, if you have a question for either of us specifically, then drop them on the appropriate shows because this whole thing was streamed to both channels. Yeah. Or if it's just general, you can drop it in either one. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff.
All that good stuff.
Hey, look. 79.9, almost at 80. I was hoping, yesterday was my birthday. I was hoping we hit 80 for my birthday.
Yeah.
It didn't work.
Go give Photo Joseph the last 100 he needs to hit 80.
It's like 80 left or 70 something left. Anyway, come on. We can do it. We're almost at 80.
We're almost
that's
there.
it. All right.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah, I gotta go get on my bike and bike to the airport.
We're gonna have lunch. You're
Yeah.
just riding his bike to the airport.
I'm gonna go bike from Ashland to the Medford airport and then throw that on the plane. So we'll see how that goes.
See how that goes. All
Follow
right.
me on Instagram. I'll be posting some photos.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
See you later, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.